You're listening to Crushing Club Marketing, a podcast for progressive club leaders ready to increase their club's revenue. The time for change begins right now. The social media landscape is constantly changing, and as platforms like Facebook and Instagram evolve, we scramble to adapt to the latest updates. In this podcast, we're talking to Shanna Bright of Private Clubs Online to get her take on Facebook's latest updates and what it means to club marketers who are engaging with existing and prospective members. Whether you're new to social media or a seasoned veteran, this podcast is for you. Well, thanks for listening in today. You know, social media is a huge part of our lives, right? And even if your club isn't engaged in social media, there's a really good chance that the people who are engaged are talking about your club. But for those of you who have a club Facebook page, you're probably aware that this platform is changing all the time. And some of the recent changes to Facebook have a lot of businesses wondering, not just in the club industry, and they're wondering, how do these changes impact my business? In a nutshell, if you're not familiar with what's going on, earlier this year, Facebook changed its algorithms to make it so that they could eliminate spammy content, ads, self-promotional stuff, things that are very clearly, posts that are very clearly messages that businesses are trying to just get out as forms of advertisements and not so much engaging, interesting content. So it includes a lot of stuff that businesses have become very familiar with posting, and including clubs. They've been putting this on their Facebook pages for years. So instead, what Facebook is doing, they're rewarding clubs, businesses that are posting content that's actually interesting to people. I mean, it sounds silly to say, but they're rewarding posts that drive a lot of engagement, rewarding posts that get shared, things like that. Content that people are clearly interested in. They're also saying, if you want to spam people, then buy Facebook ads. Or, in other words, pay to have people see that content. So to help us understand this mess and also give us tips on how to post your Facebook post going forward is Shanna Bright from Private Clubs Online. Shanna, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Ed. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation for some time. We met at CMAA in San Francisco earlier this year, right?
Yes, that was back in March.
What's been interesting in getting to know you and getting to know your work is learning more about Private Clubs Online. And I know you do quite a bit of speaking and seminars with your clients and working with your clients at their facilities as well. But for those who are not familiar with your work, what is Private Clubs Online? Tell us a little bit about your work and what you do and your areas of expertise.
Sure. I created Private Clubs Online for private club professionals who truly want to connect, communicate, and engage with their members. I'm really trying to create a resource for private club professionals to learn how to effectively communicate with members in the way that members communicate today. So we have to go where they live. So it's been traditional in private clubs that the clubs will just, here's our communication, you come to us, you read the newsletter, you come to the website, you adjust your behavior to meet our needs as the club. But in today's world, we have to go where our members are. So a lot of that is online. So Private Clubs Online is really, a resource for clubs. I provide webinars. I, as you mentioned, do some speaking with CMAA chapters, with the PCMA, Professional Club Marketing Association, with ACCP, Association of Club Catering Professionals, and as you mentioned, private consultation.
Thanks so much. It's really interesting. And what's I think one of the most interesting aspects is that you started working in social media at a time that it was really getting legs and really taking off. That 08, 09 time period. And we did some work in the travel, a tiny little bit in the travel sector, and they gravitated towards it fairly quickly because they saw that ability for people to share their experiences and things like that. And yet the club industry has been fairly slow to evolve in that area, it seems still. And yet, I mean, there are some clubs who have been very progressive that I'm sure you're working with. When you have conversations with clubs who are not actively engaged in even, let's just say, Facebook, what's the biggest fear?
The biggest fear and the biggest complaint or concern is that we're a private club and we should remain private. So all of our information and lifestyle and, events and all of that should remain private because we're a private club. I understand the fear in the sense that we're trying to maintain exclusivity within our membership,
Sure.
and what happens in the club stays in the club kind of a thing. But at the same time, there's so much opportunity to share what is the club lifestyle and to kind of, loosen this mystique and myth about, the hoity-toityness a little bit of private clubs, that actually these are family friendly. It's an attainable, membership is attainable for people who maybe never thought that membership was attainable before. A lot of clubs are very community oriented and very involved in their community. They have stellar members who are super active in the community and contribute to, their neighborhoods and make their community a great place to live. So
Right.
There's a lot of really good things happening in private clubs that should be shared in the public space.
Right.
Not only that, it's a great, it's kind of advertising without advertising when you're sharing all the wonderful things that happen in your club. So I understand the fear of we're a private club, we should maintain privacy and exclusivity, but at the same time, I think it's a missed opportunity to lead by example. Hey, we are a private club and these are who our members are. And these are the fantastic things that are happening inside of our club. I also think there's kind of a bit of an irrational fear where we think that we're going to, put up a new Facebook page for the Happy Valley Country Club. And, all of a sudden 5,000 people from all over the world who have nothing to do with the Happy Valley Country
Right.
Club are going to come rushing to the page.
And they're going to care. Right.
Like the page, and they're going to make comments on posts and things. And that's
not happening.
It's just not going to happen. There might be one or two people who are not members who like the page because maybe they're a friend of a member or,
right.
They want to become a member. But.
And the great irony with that whole thing is that at the same time, club marketers or people within the club are saying, boy, if more people could see what we were all about, more people would want to join. It's the whole idea of, boy, if we could just get people to come in and go on tours, they could see what it's like, we'd have a better chance of converting more. And yet they're really denying themselves the opportunity to open a window to those people through social media by saying, hey, this is what club life looks like for us.
Right. I would say that the second biggest, I don't know if it's a fear, but it's more of a blanket statement that a lot of clubs will make is, oh, well, our members aren't online. That always cracks me up because you look at any of the demographics, you can go to the Pew Research Institute. They have, the social media reports that they put out every year, and they do studies throughout the year on, demographics, education, income, all that kind of stuff. And, the amount of hours we spend online and what we do when we're online. And essentially there's no legitimate excuse for, our members aren't online.
Right. They all are.
Not the case.
And especially the clubs who want to get younger, and that's like it's proclaimed that we want our membership to get younger because we're aging and yet that audience is definitely, not only are they online, they're expecting in many cases that the clubs are going to be online as well, where they can get more information and learn more about them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about.
Well, and I think it's also, I was just going to say that, the grandparents, the 55 plus, 65 plus, have continually been the fastest growing demographic on social media. That's because they want to see pictures of the grandkids. They join Facebook. They want to see pictures of the family and grandkids and what have you, and stay connected. And that's really the attitude that clubs need to take. They need to take the attitude of the grandparents is, hey, we want to stay in contact with the people that matter most to us. So therefore, we need to adopt these new tools into our communication toolbox.
Yeah, and they love them, and they become addicted to it too. So, and with that, so Facebook has made some changes recently that impact your clients. They impact our clients and clubs who are active users of social media. And with the latest updates that Facebook has made, some of these posts that were once seen by the followers of your club, for example, may not be seen anymore. What's the reason behind this?
Well, at the beginning of the year, Facebook launched this Closer Together campaign. I think it was on the heels of the whole Cambridge Analytica thing. So they realized, oh, goodness, we've got a bit of a PR crisis, a bit of a user crisis, privacy, all that kind of fun stuff. And what is the real meaning of Facebook? Why did we create Facebook? And Mark Zuckerberg actually, created a long post that shared exactly what Facebook was meant to be in the origins of Facebook and what it's evolved to be and what his vision of Facebook is. And so I've pulled up just a couple of quotes or a few sentences from his initial statement on this Closer Together campaign of why they changed the algorithm, why they're focusing more on personal posts versus business posts. Mm-hmm. But it's all information that is super relevant for our clubs because certainly our members want to know what's happening at the club. They want to stay in touch with the club and they want to stay in touch with other members through the club's page. So some of the things that Zuckerberg commented on are things that clubs can actually capitalize on. So he was saying that Facebook was built to bring people closer together and build relationships. Mm-hmm. That's what we do in clubs. One of the ways we do this is by connecting people to meaningful posts from their friends and family in the newsfeed. Mm-hmm. Over the next months, we'll be making updates to rankings so that people have more opportunities to interact with the people that they care about. Mm-hmm. So he said, that they built Facebook to help people stay connected and bring us closer. Research shows that strengthening our relationships improves our well-being and happiness. Some other things that he said is that the public content you see will be held to the same standard. It should encourage meaningful interactions between people. And that's really the key, encouraging meaningful interactions between people. Right. Bringing people closer together, creating personal connections, and creating meaningful interactions between people. So that's really what Facebook is going for. The other comment was pages whose posts prompt conversations between friends will see less of an effect, less of the algorithm changes in terms of less visibility. So sparking conversation, creating meaningful interactions, that's what they're going for. That's the kind of content that Facebook holds more dear than, let's say, our event posts that we love to put out.
Right. I was going to say, let's break that down though, because there's the words make sense. And I think that if you're listening to this podcast, you might be thinking about your own Facebook posts and saying, well, that's what we do. I mean, we're about, creating information that's hopefully going to bring people together. And we have that pool party coming up on, a week from Friday. And, that's information that's bringing people together. And yes, while that might be true, it's not necessarily engaging. So let's help people understand maybe a little bit more of what that means, because with the proliferation of I like to, whenever I speak, I like to refer to them as commercials, like update activities, things you need to attend, things like that. How is that different than a meaningful piece of information that people want to share?
Sure. So if you think of the event postings that we rely on so heavily, you're right. We think that it's engaging content because we have the assumption that our members need to know that this is happening, that they want to know this is happening. But if all we're doing on Facebook is posting event announcements, all we're doing, you see them as advertisements, I see them as calls to action. So we're constantly asking our members to do something. click this, RSVP, call, we're constantly requesting that they do something. And that kind of content, while it's engaging in the sense that we're asking them to do something, it's not, it's not engaging their emotions. People are moved by emotional things, not necessarily informational or time, date, place, location, that kind of thing. When you look at content that's more about the members, has a little bit more personal touch, is a little bit more, and I know this, you'll hold this near and dear to your heart, is a little bit more storytelling,
Sure.
A little bit more of how you would talk to your members if you were talking to them in person, what a member might share on their personal social media profile versus what a business would share. So, things like sharing content about members, whether it be member profiles or a member hit a hole in one, member won a tournament, a tennis tournament, or there's, the junior aquatics program is kicking off and a profile about the staff member who's running the aquatics program. Things that are people driven, kind of naturally people want to chime in and say, oh, that's so wonderful. I love, if we're doing a profile on Ed, who's our new aquatics director. People, oh, I love Ed. I've met him. They're so great. I'm so looking forward to having my kids participate in the program. It prompts people to participate in a conversation. And that's kind of what Zuckerberg had talked about. What's pieces of content that are going to spark conversation? So an event post is not going to spark conversation. That's requiring somebody, does something. But when you talk about kind of the club lifestyle, what's happening in the club on a more personal level, that sparks conversation. So, there's tons of topics that we could certainly go over a list of topics that people can focus on. But if you think about all the stories and all of the, as we like to call them in Club Corp, magic moments that happen in a club during the day,
right?
Focus on that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that's going to prompt a conversation. It's so-and-so's birthday today. Wish them a happy birthday. So-and-so's, this is a picture from Mr. and Mrs. Smith's summer vacation in Alaska. Look at that fish that Mr. Smith caught. Isn't that amazing?
Right. Or it's on their an anniversary, and on a Throwback Thursday, say featuring your members in a different way. So happy anniversary to the Johnsons. 27 years of marriage, and things that will actually be interesting, that will prompt people to, when they see those members even around the club, to say, hey, congratulations or happy birthday or whatever that is. What I always find so interesting, Shanna, is that so for decades, marketing was done the same way in this world, and we became so accustomed to how that works. It's ads that pay for programming content, whether that's radio, print, or television. And it was always done in that same way. So it's really, we talk about posting announcements and events and things like that. It's a version of that. It's that one way. I just want you to know something that's important to me. And it's like, I don't really care if it's important to you, but it's important to me that I tell you this, right? And social media from the very beginning has really been about trying to be interesting to other people. Why is it that when we're as people living in this world, we get it? Like when we see, club marketers who might be posting event content, we'll see on their own personal Facebook, one-way announcements, advertisements, things like that, and they'll go, ugh, that's just so stupid. Or, I equate the, hey, we're in Brussels this week, having a great time, that kind of thing. It's like, okay, well, that's good for you. That's great, but it's not really helping me as a consumer of your content. Why is it that we have a hard time creating that as marketers, yet as a consumer, we see it so clearly when it's just this one-sided communication, It's like we sit there and we think, we know we want to be engaging, but it's just so darn hard when we have to create that for our members or for our membership, right?
Right.
So
Well,
what's your trick? How do you do that? How do you help the people to see things from the other perspective?
That's a very good question. It's a very deep question, but I think the ultimate thing is
deep and philosophical.
As we're getting very deep and philosophical today. So I think that as people are perusing social media and looking at content and in, you know, what's engaging to them or what catches their eye, if they can see themselves in that moment, whatever it is that you're sharing, they're a little bit more likely to attach themselves to it, right? So I'll give you an example. I don't know, probably a year ago or so, I think things in our, you know, lovely political climate were kind of crazy. They've been crazy for a while, but nonetheless, it was a particular, you know, big, I don't know, I think it was like the healthcare issue or something. And
sure.
So I posted something on Facebook that was, I just picked up a bunch of nice pictures of, you know, a puppy and a glass of wine and, you know, the mountain and a hot dude or whatever, and posted it on Facebook. And you know, I said, here's, you know, a nice little, a moment of nice pictures to look at, you know, just if you need an escape, here's some fun things to look at that are nicer than what's going on in our political climate right now.
Right.
And just the other day then, so a year later, I took one of those pictures. It's this somewhere out in nature. It's this beautiful lake and a beautiful mountain, and there's a gal who clearly had been backpacking, and she's got her backpack on the side of the shore, and she's laying on a little floaty, and I'm like, this is where I want to be. Like, who wants to be here with me? And does anybody know where this actually is? Because I have no idea. I, you know, lifted this photo from the internet ages ago. And the response to that was, I want to be there too. You know, I want to be in that picture also.
Right.
And I actually found, because I asked the question, does anybody know where this actually is? I have no idea where this is. People were like, I want to find out where that is too. And eventually somebody came up with the answer and said, oh, I think it's, Flathead Lake in Montana. And so I started looking around, and I eventually did some different research and found it was Hidden Lake in Montana and Bear Cap Mountain. But I wouldn't have been able to find that out had it not been for my friends who were engaged in, oh, this is a beautiful photo. Yes, I see myself in this photo too. I'd like to escape with you there. And I think it's that kind of, you know, that's a normal human interaction. Hey, I would love to go to this beautiful, picturesque spot in the world. Who wants to join me? That's going to prompt conversation. That's going to prompt engagement. And that's something that I think marketers don't get. You know, we have these little logos or not logos, but slogans of, you know, always be selling and sell, sell, sell. And that's not how we are normally in our life. So if marketers and businesses can kind of, you know, loosen up a bit and kind of tap into their humanity and I know it's hard to say, oh, well, businesses should kind of act like people. And it's tough to do, but at least you can speak like there's a person behind the profile, behind the page, behind the account.
So in that way, Shanna, does it make more sense? Do you recommend your clients and the clubs actually give their, you know, it might sound kind of silly, but give their logo or give their thumbnail a personality based upon the persona that they're trying to communicate with? I mean, that social media channel is an extension of the club. And it needs to have some sort of a voice, right, that's consistent with the values of the club. Yeah,
that is. I do think that's correct. I mean, in terms of the actual, you know, profile logo or whatever, I always think it's good to have the club logo that way people can recognize they're on the right channel. But no, I always recommend that one person in the club is responsible for the content, because, and a lot of clubs, you know, they're starting to hire communication directors and that kind of a thing. But one person has the ability to adopt a voice. When you have multiple people contributing to different channels, and it's okay, for example, like if you have your private event team or your catering team that's managing Pinterest, because that's where there's a lot of wedding business and that kind of thing.
Sure.
If that team wants to manage that channel because they have the appropriate voice for that channel, go for it.
Right.
But with the general content that you're trying to interact with your members on a regular and daily basis, what does that sound like? Is it, and what are your club values? Is it very, traditional and a little bit more formal? Is it family friendly and casual?
Mm-hmm.
How would you normally talk to your members within the club? That's probably how you should talk to them on your social media channels. But that overall tone and voice and personality of the club is best represented and best implemented through one person.
Yeah.
It's hard for, multiple people to achieve the same kind of consistency.
Right. That's great. That's a great tip, because a lot of times some clubs will say, well, tennis can take care of tennis's stuff and the pool can take care of theirs. But really it's almost like an ambassador, and mm-hmm. what might make it easier for some clubs is to think of that person who's on the staff that is really the best ambassador for your club, and to say, mm-hmm. maybe that person either creates it or what would they say? Well, how would they do it? What are the lines?
Right. I always have people, serve as a gatekeeper, so to speak. So certainly, you want the tennis team and the golf folks and people in the kitchen to all be contributing their content, but you want that to go through one person who is the filter, who will adjust it and jazz it up and personalize it and make it appropriate for the channels that they're being shared on. But yeah.
So let's go down that road a little bit, because I think there's an interesting thing that comes up, and I'm sure you get this in your conversations with your clients, which is, hey, Shanna, this is all great, but how do we get everyone to do it? I mean, what's the best way to get people organized? Like, I get the idea of sharing stories. I get the idea of having, more engaging and meaningful content about, people, but I'm only one person in the marketing office, or I'm not even the marketing person. I do something else. But so have you had some success that you can share with our listeners around how to get organized and how to best leverage the talents of the various people that are working at your club, that are, that are touching members in their communication and listening to those stories? Sure,
absolutely. So on a super simple level, without going into, an outline or, step-by-step plan, one of the things to remember is that everyone in the club has a responsibility to connect and communicate with members. Everybody has department goals. You're trying to do X, Y, or Z. Usually that's increasing usage, driving revenue, retaining members, something along those lines. You have a goal in your department. You can't achieve those goals unless you connect and communicate with your members. Plain and simple. You need your members to help your department achieve your goals.
Right.
So the tennis pro does not want the chef communicating what's going on in tennis, and the membership director doesn't want, the catering director to talk about membership promotions. Mm-hmm. Certainly, chef doesn't want anybody talking about food,
right,
or how to do things, the rogue golf pro needs to understand that not every member in the club wants to receive an email about golf every single day, so there needs to be cooperation in and among the departments. Everyone needs to understand that they have a role in member communication, because member communication speaks to member retention, it speaks to driving revenue, and it speaks to achieving department goals. So everyone has a role in member communication.
Mm-hmm. And everyone needs to chime in with those stories.
Everyone needs to chime in with those stories. Yeah. What's happening in your department? What's happening with the members who are most active in your department? What is... What information do maybe members need to know about what's happening in your department? So, but an easy way to do one, it has to be GM led. So GMs need to get on board and understand that this is hugely important. I mean, this is a super significant aspect of the club. We can't just rely on newsletters and random emails and think that our members are going to be informed. So the best thing that an easy way to just kind of get your feet wet and get started is making it a part of the weekly meeting. And I know this sounds really simple, but you'd be surprised how difficult it is for a lot of clubs to kind of generate this habit where, I'm sure that every club, I hope that at every club there's a team meeting, department heads come together once a week, and, you go over the financials, you talk about what's happening in your department, you throw ideas out on the table. Everyone's helping each other, get certain things done. You're talking about big events that are on the calendar and who's going to do what, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of your department report, why not give some information to the communication person and say, okay, for my social media next week or for my information, I'm going to have, I want to share this Golf Digest article. I'm going to make a video that I'd like for you to post that's about, how to shave whatever off your swing or, stance or posture or whatever. And I, have one other thing that I want to go out on, Tea Time Tuesday or whatever.
Sure.
So,
yep.
Have it be part of your weekly meeting so that at least on a weekly basis, everyone's holding each other accountable for contributing to the overall club communication, and everyone has a role. So everyone's contributing, everyone has a role. It might also spark other ideas. Hey, if you're going to do that video, why don't I do this? And then we can add it and make it this blah, 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 and then have it be a wonderful, thing for the blog or the newsletter or, the weekly email that goes out.
And so often when people hear those stories from other people, it inspires them. They go, oh, yeah. Now that you mentioned that, I remember that whatever, so-and-so was doing this or whatever. So that kind of brainstorming even and sharing of ideas can be really helpful for generating even more topics. So in general, back to the Facebook changes. So what I think that I'm hearing and hopefully our listeners are hearing is that the content needs to be more than about events. And I think that you've probably always said that. And I know that's just really a common belief for people who have been engaged with social media from the very beginning and really understand its true intent. So with that, is there anything strategically that people need to do differently? Are things like Facebook Live valued more important? Are there certain types of posts, pictures, videos, things like that? Are there other things that are still a priority or maybe even have become more of a priority now with the changes that Facebook has made?
Right. So video is definitely still very highly valued. It's also more engaging than any other form of content that you can put out there. I mean, if you think about a Facebook post and you think about just typing words and leaving it at that, how much engagement are you really going to get on that post? What is there to catch people's eye? Not much.
Right.
So
yeah, exactly.
Don't expect too much to happen there.
Yeah.
If you put a nice picture with it, that's going to catch people's eye and maybe some people will like it. But if you also think about what clubs do, they tend to put flyers, they post flyers as photos. Facebook sees those as advertisements.
Right.
Facebook is smart enough to be able to see the difference between a flyer and a photo and will not really give much attention to a flyer. So if you're putting a nice photo that doesn't have graphics on it and no writing on it, that's a little bit more higher valued than some, flyer with all the dates and times and, join us, really RSVP or whatever,
Yeah.
Big barbecue blowout, whatever. So, and then, video is definitely still highly valued and it's really kind of almost the preferred form of consuming content. I mean, you think about how much video we consume. If you look at some of the statistics, again, I always love to refer to Pew Research Institute because they just do tons of studies. But, our attention spans have become so short, 1 second shorter than a goldfish.
Very true.
We are, video captures our attention. I mean, you even look at, the GIF, it's GIF, right? I always get confused.
Right.
Before I say it, I would go, oh man, is it GIF or GIF?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Don't beat yourself up. Yeah. Right.
Right. It is a moving photo. I mean, that's really what it is. It's a very super short video or a moving, because we're so, our attention is so short. We can't even look at a photo without getting bored.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yep.
So, but definitely Facebook, and it's not like adding a YouTube link. It's actually loading your photo up to Facebook. There's been, back and forth conversations about the length of a video. Some of the longer videos, as you know, that Facebook has done the Facebook, watch, and you've got some episodes being released on different channels, like what's that micro little show?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's terrific.
Or something, that just, they're like maybe 20 minutes or something like that.
Almost documentary.
Right. And so there's certainly value in longer programs, provided that the people who are watching it receive value out of them.
Right.
So if you are posting a video that is 10 minutes long and there's really not a lot of value that can be gained out of that, people aren't going to like it. They're not going to comment on it. Facebook's going to catch on that this isn't really a popular and very, it's not very engaging, and so it won't do well. But if it's something that people are gaining value out of, that's when they'll like and comment and share. And that's what prompts Facebook to say, hey, this is definitely a good piece of content here. And they'll,
reward you for it.
Serve it to more people.
Yeah. Is there, on the flip side of that, Shanna, is there can clubs sort of become punished for posting too much advertorial type content? I don't know if you know the answer to it, but it's like, we know that you can be rewarded by posting engaging, informational, helpful content. But is there does it work the other way as well? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I don't know this for sure, so don't quote me on this. Don't hold me to this. But
disclaimer.
If you look at, disclaimer, this is just an observation. Yep. So I look at a lot of social media, and I look through, as Private Clubs Online, I have liked a lot of club pages. And I will go through my pages feed just to see what clubs are posting.
Sure.
And so I have looked at clubs that post nothing but event flyers, and I see that their engagement is so low. And so, but clubs that post event, announcements plus other content in between the event announcements seem to have higher engagement on all of their posts.
Interesting.
And so I would think that if you are continually posting something that doesn't garner any likes or comments or shares, the next time you post something and it doesn't, earn you any attention, and the next time, I do believe that Facebook probably serves your posts to less and less people, because it's just not, it's the same format. It has the same type of photo attached to it. It's who, what, where, and when. And really, you should be paying for, even if it's $5, you should be boosting that post in Facebook's eyes,
right.
Because that's technically an advertisement on their part. So when you are posting things that are more ad content than conversational content, Facebook's not going to look very kindly upon you. So, I do think you get dinged a little bit when all you're doing is event announcements and pseudo advertisements.
Sure. And the secondary piece of information with that is that variety can work. So if you do have announcements, just be strategic in when you're placing them and where and how you're using them, making sure you've got a lot of other really good content around it. Almost like Gary Vaynerchuk's jab, 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 hook, which is give them good information, help them, entertain and inform. And then every once in a while you can ask them for something.
Right. But if everything is a call to action, I would tune out after a while as well.
You get numb to it, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're constantly bombarded with advertisements in our life everywhere, right? And so why do we need that from our club? We want something that's more just a place that we want to go to, where we actually physically go to the page versus waiting for content to show up in our news feed, where we actually go to the page to see, hey, what's happening at my club, wanting to stay in contact with the club versus waiting for things to show up in the news feed.
What do you see in your crystal ball when you think about Facebook and social media over the next several years, how it's going to evolve? And it just seems like, 10 years ago or so, everyone's thinking that Facebook could never monetize what they do, and now they are, and they've come up with some, hey, if you're not creative enough to come up with an engaging post, you can always buy people's attention, right? But where do you think it's going to go? Like, what's your prediction for social media in general for as a platform, and maybe in how it would apply to club marketers?
Well, I think it's hard to look 5 years or 10. I mean, you think about how
10
far
years
Facebook
is an eternity.
has come, right? It's an eternity. I mean, you look 10 years ago and we didn't even have Facebook pages. So we were using, I remember, in Vietnam, we were using, we were like Facebook profiles as I worked at the press club in Hanoi. So, the press club was like a person. That was the only way we could seem to get it together. And then groups were added, Yeah. I think that Facebook is going to go through some growing pains in the next couple of years, because I think that people are concerned about their own privacy. So this probably isn't like the most positive thing for marketing on Facebook. Woohoo! Right. But with the whole Cambridge Analytica thing, and then, a lot of people have been deleting their Facebook profiles. I think there's still plenty of an ample opportunity to share valuable content, as you said, that informs, surprises, delights, and just engages our members and keeps the conversation going on Facebook as much as possible. But I think that in the next couple of years, just based on what I'm seeing on different articles and kind of what Zuckerberg is doing, I think it's going to go through some growing pains.
Well, Shanna, thanks so much for sharing your time and your wisdom and your all the resources and help with our listeners and with me. Where can people find out more about private clubs online?
Well, thank you, Ed. I just want to say, too, I would love to, in any format, if people want to find private clubs online on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, I'd be more than happy to carry on the conversation. LinkedIn is also a great place to connect with me personally, Shanna Bright. But privateclubsonline.com is a great place to start, of course. On the website, you'll find webinar invitations and blog posts and can learn more about private clubs online. But certainly, I'm certainly active on social media. So you can find me personally. Most of my handles are Shanna Bright or Private Clubs Online. So, awesome. But I'm more than happy to carry on the conversation with folks, and certainly I hope to see some people in webinars in the future. So I send out a weekly Tuesday tips email that's short, sweet, and to the point. It's just kind of helpful content to help people navigate not only the social media space, but also email and member communication strategies, as well as member retention and events and event ideas and that kind of fun stuff. And then I send out a monthly newsletter. Awesome. Also chock full with helpful information to just navigate what's going on in the communication space.
Awesome. So thanks again so much. And if you're listening and you're interested in connecting with Shanna, I highly recommend it. She's got so much great information. So Shanna, thanks again. And thanks to you for listening. If your club was to have an emergency situation or a crisis on your property, are you prepared to manage the online communication around this unforeseen event? Next week, we're going to get into a conversation about crisis communication and how to prepare for the unexpected. We'll hear from a nationally recognized expert in this field with tips and suggestions for managing these situations. And until then, keep crushing your club marketing.